So what is mature adult? If you're taking notes, write this down in the note section. In conflict, mature adults, research shows, move to two things. In conflict, mature adults in conflict move to compassion, and then they move to cooperation. Immature adults move to defensiveness in all its forms. But mature adults, because they're actually humble, they move to cooperation and compassion. Now, what is a mature adult? Here we go. Excuse me. Mature adults have the capacity to live a life based on interdependence. They understand that they are not the center of the world and that cooperation and caring for others are healthy ways of living life and maintaining relationships. Mature adults can give love and receive love as well. They do not expect others to be perfect. They allow others to make mistakes, are patient with them, and allow others room to grow and mature. Mature adults speak for themselves while respecting the thoughts and feelings of others, particularly with those who might disagree with them. They can engage in conflict without personalizing, controlling, engulfing, or running. These adults can stand for their own thoughts, values, and feelings without the need to become adversarial, blaming, or threatening. Because they value cooperation and compassion, these adults create positive energy with those around them and are healthy, mature, and caring individuals. That was Jesus. Now, don't assume that a mature adult won't get strong with you, because even Jesus turned over the vendor carts in the temple, right? Mature adults will take a stand, sometimes with energy, strong energy. But he was still respectful all the way around. What he did was with goodwill, and he was still respectful. But he also said, you're not doing that in this house. You with me? Just because you're mature doesn't mean you won't speak for yourself. But here's a key thing about mature adults. A mature adult can enter into his issues that he has with me and not take it personal. Immature adults will take it personal. Mature adult would go, well, hang on now, brother. Let me make sure I get what you're saying, and I'm going to teach you a skill that we do. All right? And I go, are you saying that when I did this and this and this, you took that as disrespect? Yes, Rick. So when I did this, you took that as disrespect? Yes. Wow. Would you forgive me then? What? Would you forgive me? I do not want to come across as disrespectful to you. Did I say he was right? No. But I am wise enough and mature enough to go, if I came across as disrespectful, why would I want him to perceive me that way? I don't want him to perceive me that way. I want him to perceive me as a man of goodwill and respect. So I will own how I came across. And when I do that, he goes, well, thank you, Rick. How did I just show up for him? As a person of integrity and someone who cares. Are you with me? That's what mature people do. They're not easily rattled by things. That help? Now, you notice down at the bottom, you get to do your own self-assessment. Based on these, where do you see yourself? Infant, child, adolescent, or adult? You can write it down for a moment. How do you see yourself? And if you're really brave after you do that, ask your spouse, how do you see me? And see if how you see yourself matches how they see you. Now, if they give you something you don't want to hear, and you get defensive, you just prove they were right. You did. Or just go to maturity and go, well, what do I do that sends you that message? And you might learn something you didn't know. All right? Take 5 minutes and do that. Write yours down, and if you want to know, you don't have to ask, but if you want to know, you can. In this moment,
I'll give it to you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I was thinking, you could think for yourself.
We weren't allowed, were we?
If I want these shoes from you, I'll crack your head open and give it up.
Can't do that here, huh? 2.5 minutes left. You'll hear the Marine Corps hymn. You know the timer's up. Matter of fact, y'all want a break? You're fine? Okay. We're supposed to be done at 9, so we've got right about an hour. It's going to be the best hour of your life. If not, don't tell me. Sounds like everybody's done. Anybody learn something about themselves they want to share? Anybody relate to anything in this for yourself? Yes, ma'am.
So I learned the last sentence that you stated as far as owning how you come across, because even though I might think that I'm delightful and wonderful, if he takes it as a different way, I find myself trying to explain my position or explain why I said or why I did, instead of just accepting he felt a particular way. And so for me, that was really encouraging, because it doesn't matter what I meant, it's about how he perceived it or how he received it.
Yes, yes. And we're going to talk about that and how the brain works, and how there's something your brain does that parallels to relationships. Anyone else want to share an insight you got? Yes, ma'am.
I realize some truth. I'm childish.
Okay. I want to give you an affirmation. That takes courage to say that in a public way, but it also shows maturity on your part. Because most people wouldn't admit that because there's fear or whatever, you know. But to say, you know what, I realize I'm not where I want to be, I go, great. That doesn't matter to God. All he wants to know is, what do you want to do about it? That's all he cares about. What do you want to do about it, right? No condemnation, Romans 8:1. No condemnation in Christ Jesus. So if there's no condemnation, all you got is, what do you want to do about it, right? So, but it kind of explains why things end up where they are, right? Anyone else?
I'm just over here crying on the inside because we've been married 16 years, and of the 13 years, but the last 3 was because we met them. And I'm just over here just broken. But it's good.
There's a joy.
The last 3 years have been the best of our 16 years.
It's because he straightened up finally, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah.
I learned how to crack the whip spiritually.
I just learned it's easier to pick on us men than get beat up by the women. Yeah.
Yeah, oh man.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited that the 3 years, because 3 great years still make up for those 16 bad, don't they? It's you know, I look back at my marriage in the early years, the first 9 years, though we loved each other, we didn't know how to love well.
Right.
And who we are today at 36, I'm like, I don't want to walk back through some of those years, but I am the man I am today because I chose to be teachable and learned and transform my life and create now what I want to create. All right? Anyone else want to share? Yes, sir.
Question for you. You were talking about apologizing or owning an offense, whatever. I believe you said if I made you feel this way. I wanted you to clarify that. One thing that I was taught in apologizing for offending was to not say the word if. So I'm not sure if that's what you meant, and I want you to speak into that. So if I'm apologizing, when I'm apologizing to my wife, I'm taking ownership that I did this, not if it made you feel that way, because it implies possibly that I'm really not sorry for that. So
I don't get caught up too much on verbs like that.
Okay.
What I would say is, if I came across in a way and you perceived that as disrespectful, forgive me.
Okay.
Because I'm not saying I did. What I am acknowledging is I did come across a certain way. And that bothers me. Because I would not want you to perceive me as someone who disrespects you. Because if I did that, I don't respect myself. And for sure, if I send the message, I don't care, that's a far more egregious offense. The worst message you send to any relationship is, I don't care. Because you send that message enough, and you convince them that you don't care, they're going to walk out of your life. And you shouldn't complain about it. Why? You convince them you don't care. Why would they stick around? It's not rocket science. My favorite quote, by the way, is by Einstein. Einstein said, make things simple, no more simpler. I'm a closet redneck from North Georgia, right? Simple's good. Sometimes the emotions make things more complex. So I would say it this way in my world, that if you and I were talking about something and you got defensive and I went, how am I coming across? You go, you just came across insulting. Hi, well, you said this and this, and I think you're just attacking my masculinity, whatever it might be, right? And just throw something out there. And I go, all right, let me get, so when I did that and you took that this way, yeah, well, forgive me. I would never want to come across that way because, Anthony, you're a friend and a brother, and why would I want you to be, I don't want to be perceived that way. I'll own it. Don't ask me if I agree with it. That's a different conversation. Relationships are not built on agreement. Relationships are built on understanding. We'll talk about that in detail. All right? We think relationships are based on agreement. There's not. Agreement will destroy relationships. And God does not destroy relationships. We do all the time. But he doesn't throw relationships away. Make sense? All right. Next page, and you'll see the Power of Us slide so you can fill in the blanks here. But this conversation is one that I came up. Father kind of taught me this back in the mid-90s as I was trying to figure myself out in marriage and those kind of things. I was a professor at Regent University. So I called this lecture The Power of Us. And if I'm remembered for 2 lectures around the country when I travel, it's this one and my forgiveness lecture. Those are 2 that people remember. All right. This one, though, is Rick Marks. If you want to know who Rick Marks is, it's this conversation. All right. I'm reluctant to call it a sermon because I really call it more of it's a conversation. It came back when I was a professor at Regent University. I was, you're a professor at a Christian graduate school. You're teaching graduate students. And I'm studying all of these people's definitions, writers on one flesh, right? Lead, cleave, become what? One flesh. And I'm like, okay, so I'm reading these definitions, and I'm not saying all those definitions were good or bad. It's not my point. But none of the definitions I was reading set well with me. Because if I finally figured out, I'm looking for a clear definition that the Apostle Paul and Jesus admit is something mysterious. Because they admit in Ephesians 5, the idea of one flesh is a mystery. So if the idea of one flesh is a mystery, how do you create a clear definition around something that's mysterious? So I was sitting at my desk there, and I had this question then of Father, and it was a brilliant question. As a matter of fact, I didn't know. I was just trying to figure me out, but brilliant in the sense that it changed my life and how I lived my life from that day forward. I said to Father, well, if I can't clearly define this thing called one flesh, how would I know if I had a one flesh marriage? And Spirit said, simple. You feel it. You'll feel it. Leave, cleave, and become what? Leave, cleave, and become us. And I call this conversation the power of us. The most important part of your marriage is not the husband, it's not the wife. It's the third part of the marriage. When the third part wins, you both win. When the third part loses, you both lose. And here's the trick. I'm not talking about God. Because if we're honest intellectually, anybody can have a good marriage, Christian or not. There are non-Christians who have great marriages, and there are Christians in divorce court today. So can we admit logically anybody can have a good marriage? Yes. Now what it takes to have a good marriage is biblical, but non-Christians are living out these biblical principles, thus they have a good marriage. They just might die and go to hell because they're not redeemed, but they went there with a great marriage. And then you got Christians dying going to heaven who are mean and miserable just because they're redeemed. All right? So leave, cleave, become what? Us. 2 to make an us, 1 to kill it. It takes 2 to make it, 1 to kill it. If you can just go ahead and leave that up there, and you can fill in the blanks there, all right? It takes 2 to make an us and 1 to kill it. And the way you know that us is in the house is you feel it. You feel its presence, and you can feel its absence. See, every decision you make in your marriage gives to you or gives to us. There is no other option. And if the bulk of your decisions are based on what's best for you, do not complain when us dies. The moment you snap at your spouse, us is walking out the house. Because what you've done is just made a decision based on what's best for you. But that kind of decision harms who? Yeah, not just your spouse, it harms us. And if you keep living that way, Us is going to die, and you'll feel its absence. See, I always tell couples, you want 3 people in your bedroom every night. You, her, and us. Now, how do you know when us is in the house? It's simple. When us is in the house, you feel the love, you feel the warmth, you feel the tenderness, you feel the connection, you feel the bond. And guess what? So do your children. Your kids know when us is in the house. They may not talk about it, but everybody can feel its presence and feel its absence. When us is in the bedroom at night, you sleep well, you cuddle, you hug. You also know when us is not in the house. You feel its absence. When us is not in the house, you feel the anger, you feel the tension, you feel the angst, you can feel the resentment, you can feel the bitterness, you can feel the coldness, you can feel the silence. You know when us is not in your bedroom at night? Looks like this. Get your feet off me. You sleep back to back. I didn't know this fat body can sleep on this much mattress. You know, like. You know, exactly right. Exactly right. Pastor, exactly right. I hate it when us is not in the house. You sleep in the bedroom or on a couch. We're supposed to be Christians, and we live that way. I grew up in a home where there really wasn't an us. I ain't living that way. I am not living that way. Why would I replicate that for myself? I didn't get married to be miserable. You see? Luella walked through a lot with me, but I can promise you this. After 36 years of marriage, I'm the best thing that happened to her. I taught her how to be patient. I taught her how to be kind. I mean, think about it, brother. My wife is a better lover today because of me. I gave her a gift. 2 to make an us, 1 to kill it. And every decision you make gives you or gives us. There is no other option. Are you with me? And if you want to live for you, feel free. But I always tell people, hear me when I say this. I mean it with great goodwill. But I always tell people, if you want to treat people with ill will, and you treat them in disingenuous ways on a regular basis, why are you bothered when they leave you? That doesn't make sense to me. When you treat people in disingenuous ways for a period of time and they walk out of your life, why are you bothered by that? It seems to me you should be rejoicing because you sent the message, I don't care about you, I care about me. And since you care about me, I don't care about us. When us goes, you should be rejoicing. Why are you bothered? It doesn't make sense. Because if you value us, you don't live that way. But here's what it takes. To live for us, you got to live in humility. You have to live in humility. But I don't humble myself to Luella. I humble myself to us. Here's why. When I humble myself to us, I'm giving to us. To give to us is to give to me, is to give to her. Got it? Yes. And so practically, you know, I may come home and say, hey, baby, how about tonight? She goes, nope, I got a headache. In that moment, I can make a decision for me. You know, I'm sick and tired of headaches. Why don't you gargle on Listerine or something? You could do that, right? But that would not help who? Us out. Humility? Yeah, not me either. But an us decision would sound like this. Sound like you had a rough day. What can I do for you? You might go, wait a minute, but you're not getting your needs met. You're right. But I decided, not her, I decided to sacrifice that need in this moment for the sake of what? But Luella cares about who too? And she might go, but come home early tomorrow and I'll make it worth your while, big boy. Why would she do that? Because she also values us. Every decision you make gives to us or gives to you. When you give to us, even if you're denying a need for you, it's still out of your choice. You make that decision. To give to us is to live powerfully because you're living in humility. But pride, resentment, bitterness, selfishness, unforgiveness will kill us off. And every moment you get to live one way or the other. It's like my mentor said to me, Rick, you can bring pleasure or pain moment by moment into Luella's life. And everything you do brings her pleasure or it brings her pain. How do you want to be as a way of being? And early on, I think I brought more pain than pleasure because I was so immature and broken. Huh?
Can we see that last slide again?
Yeah, you can put that slide back up there. All right? So you see there, the key ingredient to ensuring us is present is what? Humility. pride, resentment, selfishness, bitterness, all that stuff will kill us off. Now, give about another minute there. You can put the slide, you can take the slide off because I think everybody will have it down. Now, here's what's really important about the usness in your marriage. The usness in your marriage is different than you. The usness in your marriage will do things that you won't do. Example, I, Rick Marks, I don't go to malls. You won't see me in a mall ever. All right? I don't like malls. You will never see me in a mall. If you do see me in a mall, it's because I have to go to the mall. And if I have to go to the mall, then I will figure out where in the mall that store is, park near that entrance, drive to that entrance, go into the mall, go to that store, get what I have to get, and I get out of the mall. Are you with me? Yes. I don't go to town center, folks. You want to know why? Town center is a deception. It's a mall without a roof. That's all it is. Well, you want to go to town center? No, it's a mall without a roof. I don't go to those places. She goes, you want to go to town center? Where are we going? Well, I want to go so-and-so. How long will I be there? Because I got to figure out if I want to go or not. Are you with me? I don't go to malls. My wife loves the beach. I hate the beach. Now, I was in the U.S. Navy for 12 years. I love being on a boat. But to sit on the beach 8 hours a day burning, that's a waste of time. I told my wife, I think you misunderstand the beach. The beach is not a place to go sit on. The beach is a landing platform for the United States Marine Corps to invade something. The Navy has to put them off on something, and you land them on a beach. That's all it is. It's just a landing platform, right, to move inland. I don't like the beach. My wife would die a physical death and never, ever, ever visit a battlefield. I'm a big history guy, particularly military history, right? And of course, here you can visit Revolutionary War battlefields, Indian War battlefields, and Civil War battlefields, right? My wife would never go to a battlefield. Do you know what you can learn at battlefields? Troop movements, leadership, all kinds of great stuff. She would die and never go to one. Now, even though I don't like the mall, us likes the mall. Us will go to the mall, stay for hours, but not me. Because when us goes to the mall, that's not me, that's us. When us is at the mall, we're walking, talking, holding hands, and dreaming. Us will go to the beach, but not me. Us will go to a battlefield. Not often. That's not a complaint, just an observation. All right? Because us does things that you won't do. You with me? So I'm 58. On my 40th birthday, I had a bunch of friends give me this as a present. It was 3 nights, 4 days, and a bed and breakfast in downtown Gettysburg. Turning point of the war. Massive battles, right? 3 days. It was during Civil War Heritage Week, which was the week when all the 30,000 reenactors show up. There's about 15,000 Rebs and 50,000 Yanks, and they live in those tents, those areas, that field for a whole week, right? And you can go walk among them and learn from them. They're living historians. And then the gift was better than that because they gave me tickets to sit in the bleachers in the hot sun in that field, and I got to watch all the reenactments from the front. So if you're a military person and you want to see mortars and our cannon fire, troop movements, artillery, cavalry charges, I got to watch it from the front. I didn't have to stand up there with all those people. And the gift was better than that. Because there are tickets for. And you know what happened. Us decided, my brother Don went. Because us knew she had no business being there. Here's my point. Us may not always do things together, but us is always in agreement. Because us is unity. Us is never divided. Us is the Trinity, by the way. It is the Trinity. The Trinity is in us, and they will never, ever, ever undermine that relationship. And your marriage is the image of that. Live for us. Now, I am arguing that anybody can do that, Christian or not. That's the image of God that's on all of us. I need to put God back into this equation then. Then how does this fit for those of us who bear the name of Christ? My answer to that is the book of Hosea. Hosea was commanded by God to marry a prostitute. Now, you imagine God telling you, go marry that prostitute. You think, are you smoking something, Father? Just no, Rick, I want you to go marry that prostitute. Her name was Gomer, right? And it's always taught by pastors, and I'm saying it can't be, is a picture of God in Israel. But I was studying it many, many years ago through the prism of marriage, because it's about a marriage. Here's God telling this guy to go marry a prostitute, and she cheats on him in the marriage. She ain't a real healthy bride. And so I was around the end of chapter 2 one night. Luella was sleeping behind me, and I'm reading it, and I got frustrated, and I actually said to Father, in a whisper, kind of out loud, I said, why would you want a man to marry a prostitute? I actually said that in that tone. My disclaimer, Pastor, personal revelation is not public doctrine, right? That's my disclaimer. Here's what Spirit said to me. So you will know what it's like for me being married to you, bride. How do I treat you when you do those things that Luella does to you, when you do those to me? Do I treat you the same way you treat Luella? No, sir. Do I always give to the marriage with you when you don't? Yes, sir. Then you do the same thing with her. Because you're to love her as I love you. I always give to us this in my bride, in my relationship with the bride, whether she does or not. I'm like, aye, sir. I got my prism. The reason I give to us, even when Luella does not, is because my heavenly husband, since I'm the bride, my heavenly husband always gives to us instead with me. When I don't, he still does. And he's called me to do the same with Luella. He's called you to do the same with your husband. He's called you to do the same with your wife. I started to get this vision. So those of us who bear the name of Christ, you have a higher reason to give to us when you don't feel like it. Why? Because you're modeling what he does with you as his bride every single day. And by the way, that takes humility and it takes maturity. Are you with me? Live for us. Make it the most important thing. Now, let me say this. The word love is grossly misused in culture today. It's misused. Example, I love my wife, I love my children, I love the U.S. military, and I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. That's Jesus' favorite player, by the way. All right? But you hear the misuse of the word love. What if I changed the word love to this word? What difference would it make in how you lived your life? John 3:16, for God so what? Love the world that he what? Gave. Let's change the word love to this word. For God so valued the world that he gave. You see, I value my wife and I value my children. I do not value the U.S. military ever near as much. And I do not value at all mint chocolate chip ice cream. I do love it though. If I treated my wife and my children, or you, brother, or you, sister, on a regular basis in a way that devalues you, could you then not logically argue that I don't what? I don't love you. Because love never devalues the object of love. Never. And our heavenly husband never devalues her bride, even when she's not living up to what he wants. He never devalues her. You know, all this stuff that's happening today is really because we don't value people. We don't value people. We see them as this or that. I don't know if y'all know this, but I have family that are Muslims living in Jordan. I have a Muslim daughter-in-law. My oldest son went to Indonesia, married a girl. She's Egyptian. Love her like crazy. But you want to know something? I don't care who you are, where you're from. The fact, Sky, that you exist means you inherently have dignity. You inherently have worth, or God would not let you be here. You know what I've learned in my journey of life? Never devalue someone's worth or dignity. The fact that they're there. And I personally believe you could treat a Jeffrey Dahmer, a Ted Bundy, or a Charles Manson with dignity. You may not want them out of jail. And you may not trust them, right? You may not want to go to dinner with Mr. Dahmer. You might be it, right? But does anybody know where Jeffrey Dahmer is right now? He's in heaven. before he was murdered in prison, he was reading the Bible, and he called on a Church of God in Christ pastor in Milwaukee to come visit him. And that man led him to the Lord. It was a true and genuine salvation. Now, let me tell you something, folks. If our Father would redeem a Jeffrey Dahmer, people are in hell for far less than that man ever did. You with me? For far less than that man ever did. And if he would redeem a Jeffrey Dahmer, oh, what a love our Father has. May we do the same for each other. Does that make sense? Live for us. Now, here's the thing. Every relationship has an us to it. Me and my kids have an us. Me and Pastor Charles, Mrs. Daly have an us. All of us have an us, don't we? Me and Don have an us. Me and Bob have an us, or we don't. A work team has an us to it, or it doesn't. Because what you do in a work team creates the emotional connection, that sense of usness, or you'll harm it. But us has the highest meaning in the marital bond, because that one points to the Trinity. That is why marriage must be salvaged and must be saved and preserved, because it is how God reveals himself to the world, is through marriage. And when you destroy marriage, you will distort the image of God to the world, which is why this generation today doesn't come to the church. They don't want the church because they've not seen it lived out at home. Or sadly, my 31-year-old, who was then 13, said to my wife, I see you read your Bible, Mom, every day. I see you pray every day, and she does. I see you go to church 3 times a week. I also know how you talk to me. And that's all that matters. And it's true. The Bible says, speak your truth, what? In love. Speaking your truth doesn't matter if it's not in love. It means nothing. And how do you know if someone's speaking their truth in love? Simple. Love has a tone to it. It has a tone to it. That's how you know. And research and communication shows that. So you'll always know if you're speaking truth in love, what? Your tone. That make sense? All right. Now, this last part of chapter 1, we'll be going through the rest of it kind of quickly tomorrow. But today I got to build this foundation of the whole relate well process. It's rooted in chapter 1 and chapter 2. All right. This next one, as you'll see the graphic, I call these the 4 protectors. The little bit of history behind these is basically this. As I was beginning to transform my life from 1994 onward, when I realized I had not earned the right to comfort my wife, I decided I'm changing me. No more. I'm not being this guy anymore. And I started to change me. Luella didn't drive it. She didn't put any input into it. I just changed me. I was tired of being who I was. And so I started to change me. So as I began to seek counsel, go to trainings, learn, get mentors in my life, those kind of things, 4 words kept showing up in my head is to measure myself by. So I began to ask myself, am I treating you with goodwill? Am I being respectful? Am I operating in humility? And am I being caring, empathy? And I knew for a fact, if I was being those 4 things, I knew I was being loving. Because here's what I learned about love. Now, in the research world, right, there's this term called operationalize. Operationalize means, what do you mean by that in a very practical way? People go, you need to be more loving. What does that mean, be more loving? So I operationalize that word for me. Am I having goodwill and I'm being respectful? Here's what I learned. If I have goodwill with you and I'm being respectful to you, then I knew for a fact I was being loving. Why? Because love never treats people with ill will, and it's never disrespectful. Ever. And I knew for a fact if I was doing something and I was coming across as a way with ill will or disrespectful, then I knew I wasn't being what? Loving. That's on me. It's not on him. I said, well, you need to get over it. I didn't mean it. I just proved that I don't care. And there's no goodwill, and it's disrespectful to not care. I didn't have empathy then. And why? Because I lack humility. Because if you want to have goodwill, respect, and empathy, you've got to move to what? Humility. And so if you can put the graphic up for me, it's got the circle there for me. So there it is. What is goodwill? Goodwill is a friendly disposition. It's benevolence towards another. It's kindness. Goodwill is no matter what I do, I don't seek to hurt you, harm you, put you down, invalidate you, negate you. When you do that, that is ill will. And if you treat people with ill will, don't complain when you get it back, because you will reap what you sow. You got it. So I began to realize then, what are the skills for goodwill? You got to have self-management. You've got to be able to self-regulate yourself. But you can't self-regulate if you're not self-aware. You can't have self-control if you're not aware that you're out of control. Right? And that leads down to humility there. Thus, you've got to have emotional regulation and forgiveness. So those are the skills for goodwill. Respect is valuing and honoring another person. To cut someone off when they're talking is disrespectful to them. It's disrespectful. To give people input into their life without their permission is disrespectful. We all feel the need to tell people what we think about them. And you wonder why they get defensive? They weren't looking for your input, and they didn't ask for it. It was just your need to share it. It's disrespectful to give people input. They aren't looking for input. That's why I've always come. And this is one thing Don said he learned from me a long time ago, but I learned it the hard way. What I learned was I don't give people input into their life without their permission. And I usually think like, can I share an observation? Can I make an observation? Can I tell you what I'm thinking right now? I would use those kind of phrases, and if he said, no, I keep it, I don't tell you. I do that with my kids. They're adults now. I don't give them input without their permission. Particularly my daughter, driven like crazy, right? She's been living in Dubai. She's fluent Arabic, just moved back to the United States 2 days ago. She's got a job at Johns Hopkins University. And I said, Madison, can I share something with you? No. Okay. And then she comes back. What do you want to say, Dad? Like, yeah. All right. And then I would share what I wanted to share in a respectful way. But I don't give people input. It's disrespectful to do that. How do you know someone's respectful? How they communicate and how they solve problems. All right? It'll be reflected in those things. Now, empathy is the Greek word means to suffer with. It's psychological. It's emotional and intellectual. It's basically saying that I care about how things are for you. You can feel what people feel, but it says I care. Whenever you say, when you say I don't care, that means you lack what? Empathy. And the way you show empathy is by listening. Slow to anger, quick to hear, slow to speak, James 1. That passage is not focused on talking, it's focused on listening. That's where I came up with a phrase for myself. Love listens. Love listens. It doesn't talk. Because according to that passage, love will spend more time listening. And if you put your energy in listening, it's hard to get angry. It's very easy to get angry if you're not listening to me. You get it? Because I want to talk. Love listens. That's how if you want to be slow to anger, focus on listening. Simple. Compassion and caring. And humility is a quality or condition of being humble, not proud or arrogant, modest. Modest opinion of one's own importance and rank. But here's the thing about humble people. Humble people know their weaknesses, but they know they have strengths as well. And they're secure in both. It's okay to not be okay. And when I got to a point that it was okay to not be okay, I was okay. Because no longer was I trying to be a chameleon. I got to be me now. Before I wasn't okay with not being okay. So I had to try to be something that I wasn't, or what I thought you wanted me to be. And then I realized it's okay to not be okay. And the way you develop the skills for humility are self-awareness and ownership of one's strengths and weaknesses. All right? Now, the next slide is going to be harder to see, I think. There are 4 things these are not in your manual, by the way. So if you want to take pictures of them, feel free. This is more of my lecture. There are 4 hopes that all couples have in marriage. Security, intimacy, identity, and significance. All people enter into marriage wanting to know that I will be in a secure, loving home. I did not grow up in a secure, loving home. I grew up in an insecure, unloving home. We're all looking for a need for stable, loving connection, a commitment to the us. We're also looking for intimacy. That's what I call the feeling of usness, all right? We're looking for a sense of closeness and connection, that I'm not going to live life alone, that we're doing this thing together. That's the idea of us. We're also looking for identity. That even in this marriage is not going to hinder me from being who I want to be. As a matter of fact, this marriage is going to allow me to be the best version of me. But if you live in such a way you're robbing your partner from being who they are, that ain't a healthy marriage. You see, Luella loves photography, so I do things to help her develop her skills in photography. Does that make sense? We're all looking that I'm not losing me in the context of this intimacy. Western culture focuses on the I, not the we. And we have this thought here, well, if I focus on we, then I lose me. I go, no, that's the great mystery. It's what I figured out. The great mystery is this. The stronger we become, the greater you become. Yes. Why? The Trinity isn't us, never be undone. But in the Trinity, you have three separate distinct parts, don't you? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Their identities are separate. But they don't sacrifice their individuality at the expense of who? And marriage does the same thing. And the last one was significance. Got it? And significance means couples need to know they matter. They have value. They are needed by their partner and have a purpose, not just in the marriage, but in their life as well. I need to know that I matter. And by the way, here's something. If you want to take some notes, write these 4 questions down. All humans have to have these 4 questions answered early in life. A failure to have these answered in life by your parents sets you up for problems in intimate relationships as an adult. Here's the 4 questions. Am I lovable? Everyone needs to know they're lovable. Do I matter? Everyone needs to know they matter. Do I have value? We all need to know we have value. And the 4th question is, do I have a purpose? I'm not just existing here. Do I have a purpose? A failure to have those answered creates a wound in the soul. And people will do all kinds of things to believe they matter, whatever, or they give up and just addict it away through whatever addiction they have. They eat it away, they drink it away, they drug it away, because they don't believe they have value, they matter, they have worth. You with me? I had none of those answered in a positive way as a kid. You want to know what I learned? There's one person that if you go to him, declares you matter, declares you have value, you are lovable, and he does have a plan and purpose for you. It's the cross. Yes. It's our Savior. Yes. It's his dad. Because you don't die for things that don't matter to you. You don't die for things you don't think are lovable. And you don't die for things you don't value. But it's also my responsibility to make sure I send my kids that message every day. It's also my responsibility to make sure that Jennifer knows that she matters, she has value, that she has worth, even if her own brain tells her no. Are you with me? We're all looking for that. And marriage is supposed to be a secure place for that. If you ask me at 36 years today, do I matter to Lila? Yes. Early on, I wasn't sure. Did she value me? No. She valued First Baptist more than me. I used to tell her in the first years, if it ever comes down to the church or me, I will lose. I didn't say God. I said that system. Because growing up in an alcoholic home, that was her refuge from craziness. That was her safe place in life. But her safe place undermined the marriage. And I wasn't a healthy, mature guy anyways. So I'm sucking her dry like a psychic vampire trying to get my own needs met. Right? I mean, it was just a really dysfunctional dance back in the first 9 years. That's why I said she's thankful for me. I taught her how to love well. You know? Does this help? Yes. Does this help? Now, the next slide up, it's going to be hard to read. I think what I'm going to do, I think I'll make copies of this for you tomorrow, all right? I'll make copies of this tonight and bring them to you. Sound good? Yes. Basically, what I've done here, and we'll just not spend the time on it. What I did here, I wrote down on the left-hand column are what are goodwill behaviors, and then the other behaviors are violations of goodwill. The left side are what are respect behaviors, what are violations of respect. All right. The next slide over has to do with humility. Those are humility behaviors on the left, but violations are on the right. And then good empathy behaviors on the left, violations of empathy on the right. So what I did was, if you want to know what these behaviors look like practically, here it is. And you do these things, you're violating those 4. Now, you notice the graphic, goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy are circled around what? Us. Why? Here's what I learned. Now, let me kind of give you my history. I learned those 4 words as a way to measure myself in terms of how I was doing. And then over here, I was teaching the idea of us. In my mind, they are 2 separate concepts. Until 9 years ago, I was in Wisconsin doing an intensive with a couple, and during the lunch break, I was just sitting and pondering, and that graphic, the circle with us in the middle, and the 4 words around it, came into my head. It was so strong in my head, I had to draw it on a piece of paper to get it off my body. It was so strong, I kept staring at it. So I knew it was from the Lord. I said, why is the 4 words around us? I just saw them as 2 separate things for years. And he said, so what you fail to understand is, when you live with goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy, you are always protecting the us in your relationship. Romans 12:18, if at all possible, as far as it concerns you, be at peace with all men. You want to bring peace to relationships? Live with goodwill, humility, empathy, and respect. You will bring peace to all your relationships. That doesn't mean you'll have it with everybody, because they might not want it with you. With me? But it's what you bring. And if I live maturely, because mature people live out of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. In conflict, that's where they turn, to those 4 things, because that's who they are as a way of being. That make sense? Any thoughts or comments about this? What are you realizing you're becoming aware of?
I would say to make all of this work, it requires humility, because it seems like that's been the glaring theme. Because in order to forgive right, you have to have humility. In order to mature properly, you have to have humility.
Amen.
And it seems like humility is the common denominator in it all to make any marriage or relationship work.
Yes. And God gives grace to the
Humble,
and resist the.
pride.
You know, there's no other form. You're either in humility or you're in pride. It's not rocket science. It's like, Rick, you want to live in pride? Feel free. But I always tell people, if you want to live pridefully, don't complain when you get God's resistance. You're inviting it. Because pride brings his resistance. But live in humility, you invite his what? His grace. What you do invites resistance or grace. You make your choice. You make your choice. But I just tell people, don't complain about what you get. Jim Rohn, who's one of the big leaders in the whole personal development field, he said it this way. You know, the Bible says you reap what you sow, right? But he said it this way. I like his way of saying it. He goes, the very things you're reaping in your life right today is that you've been sowing it all along. The stuff you're reaping now, you've been sowing all along. You want something different? Sow something different. But to sow something different, you got to be a different person. You got to transform the inner man. You can fake it for a while, but the inside is still going to come out. Are you with me? I had become a mature adult, not an immature adult. Now people are like, well, how long did that take you? I'm still doing it. But I would argue when I kind of really sensed that my heart had settled down. You know, I went with the Christian Healing Ministries, had to deal with the father wound over there and some other things. It was about an 8-year journey. You know, that's a long time. That's a blip on the radar screen in terms of eternity. 8 years, a blip on, I'm 58, right? I get to live in the benefit of that. And the only reason I know that I'm that guy now is because of my wife. Last October, I was driving the other side of town to meet with one of my leaders. And Luella called me. I was going to meet him for breakfast. And she called me when I was driving over there. And she said, hey, you got a minute? And I said, yeah. She said, I've been studying 1 Corinthians 13 all week. I said, okay. She said, your goal in life was to develop me maturely, wasn't it? I said, yes. Your goal was to become a mature man, wasn't it? I said, yes. She said, I want you to know you are. And I just teared up and I said, thank you. 'Cause that's the guy I want to be for you. I want to be it for you. When I was on staff at First Baptist, I always told my kids, if the way you see me treat your mama on a regular basis is not the same way I treat people at church, you don't have to trust my faith. Because you know I don't believe it either. The real me is not the guy out there. The real me is the one right here at home, treating that lady on a regular basis, however it is. That's the evidence of my faith. I held myself accountable to my kids. Does that help? So I told you, most of this stuff is my journey, my own working it out for myself. That make sense? All right. Any questions or comments about that then? All right. In your manual, the personal manual, if you're working with couples, you'll notice at the end of every section, there's this peach color page. It's called Moving It Forward. Works really good here, forward, right? We made this after your church, all right? Really, because that was a phrase I used for myself. I learned something, I go, okay, I got to move it forward now. I just tell myself that. And I tell people now, counseling, move it forward, move it forward. In other words, take what you learn, go do something. Don't learn it and do nothing. That means nothing, right? Don't be hearers only, but what? Go do it to make it a part of you, transform you. But you don't transform by learning, you transform by doing. It takes intentionality. So this is homework. If you're mentoring a couple or teaching a class, teach a section, have them do the homework. When they come back the next week, go over it. In the back of at the end of every chapter in your leader's notebook, there are some group study questions for every chapter as well. So if you're doing it in a group, I added some group study questions as well, all right, for you to have. Questions or comments about any of this? Yes.
Make sure when you get your code, when you get your code tomorrow, and you'll have access to the video series, it's going to be easy. You let them watch the video, and then you go through the exercise for homework. You watch the next video, then you got the homework. So it just goes together so that you don't have to learn how to do what he's doing. They can watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't really believe this stuff. I just teach it this way. All right. Let's jump to chapter 2, page 20. For the last 15, 20, we got to be done at 9. All right. What is love? You heard that song? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Baby, don't hurt me. There we go. Everybody knows that song, right? So, now, in the leader's guide are all the Bible verses for this, all right? Let me tell you why I don't have it. The Lord told me about 4 years ago, Don, if I wanted to transform culture, don't take this personal. If you want to transform culture, you got to get outside the church.
Yes.
You got to go to them. You got to go where they are. They're not coming to us. Got to go to them. So I said, all right, then I had to have a curriculum that was biblically sound, just no Bible verses in it. And so my thoughts were, okay, Lord, you take me to the culture. So I wrote a curriculum. It's all biblically sound, just no Bible verses in it, right? And then the psalmist says, prepare the horse for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. So I prepared the horse for the day of battle, and I'm going to go out there, right? And the victory's going to be the Lord's. And then I had colleagues and pastors going, hey, we want this in church. I went, no, this isn't for the church. This is for them. No, but we want this in the church. And no. And one of my leaders, Paul Robertson, said, Rick, we want this in our church for our mentoring ministry. I said, Paul, this is going to the culture. He said, well, we still want it in our church. I said, Paul, if I do that, I have to write a leader's guide for the church. He said, start writing. And my brother, who speaks into me, I said to him, I'm starting to wonder if I'm supposed to be with the church still too. And he said, you know how the Bible told you, or the Lord told you to prepare it? Yeah, he said, you're also dictating what he does with it. He never said you weren't leaving the church. He just said you're going out there. But you're dictating what he does with it. You were never meant to leave the church. I went, okay. Teachable, right? So all the Bible verses to support these concepts of love are actually in the notebook, all right? You'll see them there. But let's talk about what love is, number one. Love is a what? Gift. You go ahead and put there we go. Love is a gift. Love gives. For God so loved the world that he gave. All right? Love is a gift. You can keep that up. All right? Period. Love gives. To give love with an expectation of something is more a form of bartering. If you say, well, I did this out of love for you, but you did not do this, that is not love. Be honest, that's bartering. Why don't you tell them, I'm willing to do this as long as you do that? That's an economic exchange. Love gives. It doesn't require anything back. Next, love is a choice. Choose you this day who you will serve. Love is a choice that leads to a what? Commitment. Third, love is an action. Not necessarily an emotion, but I am going to prove to you before tomorrow's over that love is an emotion and must be seen that way. All right? Next, love is a what? It's a skill. You can get better at being loving. There's 15 traits of love in 1 Corinthians 13. Do not focus on all 15. It's overwhelming. Here's what Father showed me. Rick, of those 15, 13 are variations of only 2. Patience and kindness. To endure all things and bear all things are forms of what? Patience. To be rude is unkind. To rejoice when evil wins is unkind. And every day you get to practice patience, kindness in all its forms. And if you have problems with patience, here's where you go. Walmart. 25 checkout lines, and only 2 are open. And years ago, when I was learning this, I was in Walmart, 7 a.m., and there's this little lady in front of me, probably in her 80s, slowly writing a check. And I'm like, ah. And I'm standing there thinking, ah. And then Father says, what are you being right now? I went, impatient. To the degree you're impatient, you're unloving, aren't you? Yes, sir. People feel you're impatient, son. And I started talking to the lady behind the cashier lady. I said, hey, how long have you been here today? What time did you come in? And I started focusing on her rather than this lady in front of me. And I became patient. It's a great place to practice patience. Because to the degree you're patient, you're loving. To the degree you're impatient, you're unloving. And that's all that matters. And when someone cuts you off in traffic and you speed up and look at them, Father says, what are you doing? Well, that person tried to cut me off. Yeah, I know. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to show them what for. Didn't you say you want my heart, Father, son? Well, yeah, I sure want your heart. Do you know that I allowed that person to come this way so you could practice kindness right here? So why don't you let that person go on and you practice kindness, because this is an opportunity for you to practice it. But if you don't want to be kind, do me a favor. Take the Jesus Loves You bumper sticker off your car. Because you're misrepresenting me. I don't treat people that way. You with me? And the last one is love is a what? Love is a habit. And it can become something you just become. But that's maturity, not perfection. Got it?
Yes.
You can mature in love. That's just time. And you get opportunities every single day to practice it or not. You with me? So years ago, I came home. I think my son Trey was about 16 or 17. I come home from work, and he's out there mowing the lawn. You can see he's got an attitude. I get out of the car, wave down, he's like, I thought, oh, well, whatever. Go in the house, see Luella. Hey, how are you doing? What? I said, how you doing? I'm not good. Why not? Trey's out there with an attitude. I said, yeah, I know, I just saw it. Does that bother you? Nope, doesn't bother me. Well, it should. Why would it bother me? She can't see she has the same attitude. She can't see it. And it doesn't bother you. Well, no. Why not? It doesn't bother me. Well, it should. It doesn't bother me. Well, it should bother you. Well, I see it bothers you, but it doesn't bother me. Why does it bother you? I said, because you misunderstand the greater message here. If he wants to mow the lawn with an attitude, I don't care. He's still mowing the lawn. The fact that he's still mowing, the fact that he's still mowing the lawn means he respects you and me. I'll value the fact that he respects us. If he wants to mow the lawn, be miserable. I don't care. My lawn gets mowed. The day we have a problem is not the day he has an attitude. It's the day he says, make me mow the lawn. And that's the day I've got a problem. I won't live in such a way that I lose his respect. I will live kindly and lovingly, even when he doesn't want to be. So what? Our daddy does that with us all the time. Can you imagine him walking around, you've got an attitude, I got an attitude. He doesn't do that. He goes, Rick, looks like you got an attitude. I do. You want to talk about it? I'm listening. He'll just listen to you. Let you get it all out. Are you with me? That's a much better way to live life, isn't it? It's a much better way to live life. All right. So that's what love is. Now, I'm going to teach you something from psychology, Sternberg's theory of love, and then we'll kind of wrap up our night. This is brilliant by Robert Sternberg. He wasn't a Christian, but his understanding of intimacy and love was really powerful. And he points out in his research that love has 3 things to it. It has intimacy, which is about closeness and friendship. It has passion, which is about romance and eroticism. But it also has commitment. All right? A choice to love someone, and a choice to love even when you lose the feelings of love till death do us part. Got it? So he points out that when love has all three, when you have intimacy, passion, and commitment, he calls that consummate love. It's when all three of those things are meshed together. But here's his brilliance. He also pointed out there are variations of it depending on which of those three you have. So let's go back to the top of the triangle there. If you'll notice at the very top, if you have intimacy only, no passion and no commitment, that's just liking someone, all right? I like you, you like me. We're not into this romance, we're not into eroticism, and there's no commitment to this relationship. That's just liking someone. You can have passion for someone and not have a relationship with them, friendship, or commitment. That's called lust. That could be infatuation. That's when you noticed her for the first time. Remember, guys, you noticed her first time, you're like, whoa, she looked good. I don't know when I met Luella, but I remember when I first saw her. I was at a church event back in 1982, 81, and she walked across the room. I noticed her butt. I went, she looks good. Come on, guys, that's what you notice, right? That's passion. I had never seen her before. We had no commitment. Now, I will tell you this, though. I don't know why, but I did. I knew I was going to marry her. I can't tell you why. I went back. I was in the Navy at the time. I told my senior chief, I said, I saw the girl I'm going to marry last night. He said, who is she? I said, I don't know. I just saw her last night. Well, what's her name? I don't know, senior chief. I just saw her last night. He rolled his eyes. So I don't know when I actually met her, but she would not date me for 2.5 years. I was not what she wanted, which only goes to show denial lasts a long time, you know. But eventually, my senior chief did our wedding for me. You know, he married us in 1984. So infatuation is passion only. And then you can have commitment without intimacy and without passion, and that's empty love. The only person I know that, at least in my family, was my grandparents. They were married 63 years, but they didn't really like each other the whole 63 years. But they were committed. My grandmother was pre-Vatican II Catholic. Pre-Vatican II Catholic. You just don't divorce, right? But they're miserable all the time with each other. And I don't want to live that way. I don't want to live. That's a home with no us. You know? I don't want to live that way. Listen, and please don't, I am anti-divorce, but I'm a realist. I don't live I don't live in a mystical world, I live in a real world. God's not impressed that you're not divorcing. He really isn't. It means nothing to him if you're not loving. Not divorcing means nothing when there's no love. Does not say the greatest disease is not divorcing. So the greatest disease is what? Because love is him. All right. Now, let's combine these. What if you have passion and commitment devoid of intimacy? He calls that vacuous love, or another word here is fatuous love. It's love in a vacuum. In other words, what drives the commitment is the sexual energy, and what keeps the sexual energy is the commitment to it. But when all that blows up, there's no friendship to hold it together. You with me? On the other side over there, you've got intimacy and commitment without passion. In other words, you have couples who are really, really good friends. They really like each other and they're committed to the marriage, but they've lost the love and feeling in terms of passion, and they haven't had sex in years. But they don't want to divorce because they really enjoy each other's friendship. But they always know there's something missing because they know they're not doing the other act. Make sense? And then you have what you see mostly today now in America. I like you and I want to have sex with you, but I don't want any commitment to you. He calls that romantic love, and that's cohabitation. I like you. I want to live with you because I like you and I want to have sex with you. I just don't want any what? I don't want any commitment with you. And yet research shows cohabiting relationships of all relationship types are where children are harmed the most. It's where they're most abused. All the social ills are in those relationships more than any other based on research. But people still do it. Why? It's not that they don't believe in marriage as an ideal. Research is clear. People believe in marriage as an ideal. They just don't see it as a possibility because they've seen no good examples of it. So they don't believe it's real. In other words, if I get married, we're just going to end up what? Divorce. So we'll save the divorce and just live together till it doesn't work. Can you imagine if God treated us that way? And if you think his relationship is all three, what do you think Song of Solomon is? It's that erotic form of that intimate love that marriage, that is Father, God, the holy, the heavenly husband and his bride, right? That is a relationship. And the Song of Solomon is about that kind of relationship. It's like an expression of that depth of love in human form between God and his creation. And he says, I will never, ever, 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 ever leave you nor what? That's commitment. That's commitment. And Jesus says, you are my friend. He likes you because you're lovable. You matter and you have value. And by the way, he's got a plan and purpose for you. Does this help? Yes. Questions or comments about any of this? Now you'll notice, and you'll see this in the video, there are a lot of exercises that we're kind of glossing over. But this next one here allows couples to kind of put this into practice. In other words, you can think about it for yourself. When you first met someone, who were you? What was you interested in? Was it passion? Was it commitment? Right? When I first saw Luella, let's be honest, it was passion. All right? When you were dating someone, if you were living with someone not married, just before you got married, what was strong? After the end of your first marriage, which of these were strong for you? All right? There are some people on their honeymoon, commitment was there, friendship and passion was not. They fought on their honeymoon. I know, I've worked with them before. You think, man, you guys started out bad. No wonder you're still bad to this day. Does that make sense? So the reason I have Sternberg's theory in here is to allow people to begin to think about who they are, what is love, but what is it you want to create for yourself? If all you focus on is sex at the expense of the friendship and commitment, you shouldn't complain about what you get. Consummate love, agape love, bears all three. And like a beef stew, we're just always mixing those out. Now let's be honest, sometimes this passionate love is low and commitment needs to be high, right? Commitment's not a bad thing when the friendship isn't there and the passion isn't there. 2004, 2005, worst 2 years of my marriage. We had a lot to work through. She didn't feel a lot of love from me, and I didn't feel a lot of love from her. I did love her, but we didn't have a lot of feelings for love. But I also knew I did love her, and we were going to work through this, and we were going to get it back one day. So commitment keeps you in there in the rough times so you don't what? Throw it away. But you don't want to live with empty love all your life. That's not pleasing to the Lord. But commitment does keep you in there. It's called commitment by devotion. I mean, commitment by constraint. I'm in this because of the kids, or I'm in this because of these reasons. I'm in this now because I'm fat and great, no one's going to want me, right? Whatever it is, that's commitment by constraint. I'm committed, but I don't want to stay there. I want commitment by devotion back. I want constant love back. So you got to be intentional to get there, all right? So having people go, well, I'm only committed because of the kids. I said, doesn't bother me one bit. I don't care. Let's not stay there, though. Let's get the devotion and the usness back, all right? If that's what keeps you there, I don't care. So what? At least I got commitment. If I don't have commitment, that's a real problem, right? This help? Yes. All righty. Questions, comments? All right. I'm going to give you a homework assignment that I'll say give us a little extra time tomorrow. Is that all right? It'll take about 30 minutes. Look on page 26, 27, 28. Tonight, take the CARES assessment test. We'll talk about this tomorrow, and then we'll show you what to do with it. So tonight, take the test. Now, here's the key. Do not read into the questions. They just mean what they mean, all right? Don't read into them. They just mean what they mean. It's on a Likert scale from -2 to +2. Read the statement. Score each of those statements as it applies to you, as you know yourself, all right? Then, there's 50 items. Then you'll notice on page 30 and 31 is the scoring sheet right here. You'll also notice that CARES refers to a bunch of emotional words. Comfort, attention, affection, all right? There's 5 A words, R, E, and 2 S words. That's where the word CARES come from, all right? Underneath comfort are 5 numbers. These are the question numbers in the test. Whatever you scored for question 10, put in that spot. Got it? So just transfer the scores from the test over here. Total them up. That's all I want you to do. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you how God designed us to bond around these needs. All right? Because chapter 1 and 2 is the foundation for everything. The rest of it is a skill to make it work. All right? That's why I spend a lot of time on the first 2 chapters. The rest will kind of go over quickly, but you'll learn all the skills as well. All right? Questions or comments about this? All right? None? What'll be your takeaway from tonight? Anybody?
I guess I could say, when it comes to assessing my level of maturity, when I guess when I found myself, and my wife pointed out me in my adolescence, I thought of myself as a mature person, but in seeing the part about being withdrawn and uncaring and stuff like that, I noticed, that's me, and it stuck out because today all I've been hearing is it's okay to love your wife, like because how it came to me. It's okay to love your wife. It's okay to love your kids because I grew up in a functionally dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
So we were cool, we were close, but we weren't affectionate. So we weren't that family. Before you go to sleep, I love you, give you a kiss on the forehead and stuff like that. Like it's still odd for me to hug my mama now. So like it transfers into me dealing with my wife and with kids and stuff. Like it's still that awkwardness. I'm still learning to get used to. So that's still immaturity. And then a defense mechanism I have is so I don't deal with feelings. All right, cool, that's cool, whatever. Dismiss it. But it's just something I had to accept.
Are you saying that you're recognizing that it's okay to feel and that it's okay to connect?
That's it, exactly.
Amen. You just gave yourself a gift. Yeah. You just gave yourself a gift. Because you're giving yourself a part of your brain that we're going to talk about tomorrow. That part of your brain is called the limbic brain. By embracing that part of you, you'll find your life balanced in a far greater way to love deeper. So, brother, I appreciate your openness about that because that's a gift you give yourself. And in so doing, it's a gift you give to us. You know, it'll translate to the us. Any other takeaways from today? Yes, sir.
A good thing about the us, my wife and I, being ex-military, had to be on time. If it was 9 o'clock,
Yep.
everything was at 9 o'clock. It was late, 2 hours before whatever, So, my wife is the us that we have is my wife is relaxed. She's not really pressed for time as I was. It is not a heaven or hell issue. And the us, what it did for us was it allowed me to just kind of fall back a little bit, just relax about it, and not be so quick to be punctual, and we've kind of transferred that, but that us has allowed us to kind of transfer some of the characteristics and personalities that, we both have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's helped me to be on time. So our us, I think, your teaching has helped me to be able to put a label on what we were doing. I didn't know we were doing it for us. I just
Yeah.
knew that I got tired of him having an attitude because I'm flying down the steps and he's already in the car. And I know he got tired of me, because like, for instance, there's something here that I do at the church, and it's just a gift, so I can't take credit for it, but God allows me to do it with ease. And he's like, you should be there 20 minutes before time so you can prep. Like, I don't need a prep. I just walk in and I do it, So we have learned with our us to value our differences, and I think that that's a beautiful thing because you've just given us the label. We didn't know what we were doing. We just decided to stop stressing over it.
You know, a great metaphor for understanding an us is, you ever been in a canoe with somebody? And you're rowing there in the back, and you're right, and you're just like, no, do this, no, go to the other side, right? Eventually, there's not a rhythm there, but eventually, guess what you get? You get a rhythm. That's the us. You got a rhythm, and now you're just sailing along. You're just going. But you got to figure out that rhythm, and it's about meeting needs. It's about goodwill. It's about respect. It's about valuing. All right, let's work together. Not for me. That's all right. All right. You need me to make the bed? I'll make the bed. I hate making beds, but I'll make the bed. You know, doing it for 25 years. I don't like it, but I do because when I do, she feels supported, and when she feels supported, she feels valued and loved. That's why I make the bed. But I hate making beds. All right. And you just find that space where you're just living that rhythm, and then you find out that you don't really argue much anymore. And if you do, it's probably dead within a minute or two because you just don't go there anymore. You learn to regulate yourself. You've learned to work with goodwill, and it just creates a very different way of being in the home. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a much better place to be. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say that this is really great because I'm about to begin a marriage in a couple of days.
How many days?
35 days.
So y'all are newlyweds, or going to be, or engaged. Excuse me. Well, that's cool. This is great prevention. You can learn from all of our failures. No, we don't want to be like them.
So yeah, I think it's just great. Because like Pastor Scott was saying, Martin's more like chill and relaxed and take his time. He's methodical and things like that. And I'm more, come on, it aggravates me sometimes, but now it's us being, going forward. I'll take time to,
Yeah. That guy over there is one of the most mature men you'll ever meet. Literally. I don't say it because he's my brother. It's actually true. But I called him one day. They were driving. Now, his wife is late, right? You hear that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You hear that? Mm-hmm. And they were supposed to make a trip down to South Florida about a year or so ago, and they were leaving at 7:30. So I called him like 10, thinking on the road. Well, they were still there. I don't think she left till like 3 o'clock or something. She got ready till 3. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing? He said, well, you know, I can't control it, but I do love her. And I thought, I'd be like, get going, woman. I'm Navy, 15 minutes before, right? And he was just, hey, I love her. This is who she is. I can adjust for this today. And I'm like,
Wasn't always that way.
that's true. But you see what I mean? You learn that, hey, sometimes that's just Jennifer, and that's one of who makes her who she is. And I'd rather have her than not have her at all. And I'm going to close with this. Is that all right? We don't do this here, but I'm going to teach you as you go through the rest of this weekend. I want you to keep this in your mind. We do an exercise. It's called What You Really Mean to Me. And I would have every one of you men go sit down somewhere around this room. And ladies, you lay your head down in your husband's lap and you close your eyes. You don't say a word. And then I read a little, kind of a little meditation. And then I read a bunch of sentence stems, one by one. And guys, you would repeat the sentence stem to your now deceased wife. And you say whatever you want to say. Here are some of the things, the stems. Ladies, you would do it after they were done. Some of the things I'm going to miss about you now are. What would you tell them? The good memories that I am left with are. What would you tell them? The regrets that I'm left with are. What would you say? What I wish I had told you. The changes I have to make in my life to go on without you now are. The goal in life, in my personal opinion, is to die a few regrets. My father, I don't usually share this publicly, but he owned a helicopter, had a lot of stuff. But when he died at age 47, he died with broken relationships with all of us. And I was by his side when he died in the hospital. My first thought was, did I matter? Did I matter? That's not a thought I want my kids to have. And when he was laying there that night before he died, he was talking. He was literally out, but he was talking. He was on the phone. I don't know if I ever told you this. He was on the phone talking business, selling heavy equipment, Caterpillar. And I realized in that moment, what mattered to my dad wasn't us. He was still selling equipment in his head, in his mind. I ain't living that way. So many years ago, I got out of the shower, went to the bottom drawer where my t-shirts and underwear are. I pulled out that drawer, and I had this feeling, it was like a aha. I actually said, they're always in there. Lou was in the closet. She says, what? I go, my t-shirts and underwear. Whenever I open that drawer, they're always in there. She looked at me like, you're not. I said, no. I just realized something. I take that for granted. Whenever I open this drawer, had done that for 21 years of marriage. It's 36 now. Whenever I open this drawer, in that drawer, they're always in there. I don't think about them. I don't consider them. I never. They're just there. And I said, I take that for granted because the fact that I open it up, they're there. I told her this, that's the evidence of your presence in my life. And if you were not there, if you were not here in my life, they would not be there. I am not ready for that. And I realized how much she does around me regularly that I don't even consider. But if she died today, all of that would show up. Nah. I'm going to appreciate, I'm going to be grateful on a regular basis. So if death comes today, to the best of my ability, all my relationships, to the best of my ability, are healthy and whole and connected. That I've said what I needed to say on a regular basis, not after someone died and wish I had said it. You got it? And that's really what Relate Well is about. That's the heart of it. Can I close in prayer? Yes. Father, thank you so much that, Lord, you live this with us. This is really your heart in a very practical way, I guess. It's what you've taught me, and I thank you I get to come here and teach my brothers and sisters. Thank you for a church family that seeks to be a lighthouse of love to marriage and families and to the community around. Thank you that you've given us just as a small ministry to come alongside to partner with them. And Father, just friendships that we've made tonight. Give us all a good night's rest. Bring us back refreshed tomorrow to continue this journey. It's in Jesus' name I pray for your glory and for my brothers and sisters' benefit. Amen. All righty, y'all. Well, thank you.